System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' in the city left.
Today is Wednesday, September 11th. I am Amin TMK alongside my co-patriot and Inner City Left co-founder, Emoji Little Tanky Sumler. What's up, bro?
Exactly. Patriot. That's me. I'm a patriot. Now, I don't think there's nobody that loves Americans more than me.
And we're both, true American stories, I feel like, when you boil down to it. So, yes, I agree. We love Americans. So let's, we've been, we always, I feel like, I hate to say it, push the Russia-Ukraine conflict aside.
It's only barely important. I mean, it's only the only thing that's risking thermonuclear radiation fallout. And I mean, not World War III, the Stone Age. That's not that important. Fairly insignificant.
Yeah. And it is important to acknowledge all of this is important, you have to make a decision on Russia, Ukraine, and how you feel one way or the other, because it could be the decision that ultimately leads us to WW3 possibly. Okay, let's get in.
I want to say this too, because this is important, right? I think one of the things that people get, especially people that talk about geopolitics, we're always assumed to be in the bag for these nations. I'm not. I am a human being, and I think how humans think. And so when I watch things happen, I think, as a human, what would I think if that happened to me? You know what I'm saying? Just on a quick, because we're going to get into this in much greater detail. But I just want to remind you guys how far we have slid in the last 4 years, as far as what has happened with this conflict. In fact, let's just a little bit, we'll go back even a little bit more. Obama, which is when this really began back in 2014 under the Maidan coup, which was facilitated by Victoria Nuland, who has been in the government so long, it doesn't really matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. She started off with Dick Cheney and Bush. She found her way working through the Obama administration. She didn't do that much with the Trump administration, but she was still back there. And then she's back in prominence again, right, under the Bidens, under her tenure with this whole thing, because she's the one that's really looked at this whole affair. We went from saying they wouldn't get HIMARS because those are attack missiles, right? It's like rocket artillery. We didn't want to give them that, okay? We gave them that. Then it became Americans wouldn't give them tanks, right? Then we gave them that. Then it became America wouldn't give them the ATACMS, okay? Then we gave them that. ATACMS is a missile system that is utilized to use GPS, it's coordinates, it's a smart bomb, smart rocket, right? We gave them that. Then we wasn't going to give them the F-16s, and we gave them that. Then we weren't going to give them the cluster bombs, and then we gave them that. Then we wasn't going to allow them to actually invade Russia, and we gave them that. Russia has said specifically, where a red line for us is long-range missile attacks into Russia. And now the rumor is we're about to give them that. Now, I need you to put some things together as our viewers. This is a force that has attacked nuclear reactors on several opportunities. They've tried to attack the Kursk nuclear reactor in Russia. That's a fact. This is not conjecture. This is real. The Atomic Energy Watchdog spoke about this. They've attacked the nuclear reactor in where is it? Not Kharkiv.
Zaporizhia?
Yeah, Zaporizhia. Right. Right. It's near Kherson. Right. They've attacked the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant several times. Right. Now, if you have long-range attack missiles, you have kind of a nuclear intent, and you have F-16s, that is a recipe for delivering a first nuclear strike. Now, I ask you as a citizen, would you allow another country to threaten the United States in that way? And now let's get to it. Now you can begin to understand why we talk about this Russia situation and why it's important. I've never been to Russia. I only know one person in my life who's actually been to Russia. I just study the world and I understand things that are dangerous and we talk about them like grown-ups.
It seems like the United States has a big problem with all the ancient grown-up super nations, or superpowers. Russia, China, you got issues with Iran and Brazil and sanctioning most of the world. Let's talk about this because this was supposed to be like, it always seems as if the pressure is on Russia to wind this down, even though I think, countries like China and India, they understand that, like, behind closed doors, this is being enabled and forced upon them by the United States and the expansion of NATO. But like you said, headlines keep getting crossed, and it got crossed. What was this, like 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago? I'm not sure. This incursion or whatever you want to call it into the Kursk region.
Yeah, it started October 7th. They're sneaky bastards.
Wow. Right. So we have this. Now, obviously, we said this during the Kursk invasion. We were literally watching it on Military Summary Channel. And I'm like, this is a horrible decision for the Ukrainian military. They got all their toys. It kind of feels like they were the kids that wanted to wear every single new pair of clothes and shoes they got for the first day of school, even though it didn't go together. And they just decided to run out with all these new weapons and all this new manpower. And they just got destroyed. And
they had cheap surprise. And it's important to say that. They had cheap surprise.
They punched John Jones in the face.
They punched John Jones
wobbled him.
But he didn't die. Right? This is what we talk about when we talk about the difference between a tactical success and a strategic success. Americans love tactics, oh, mission accomplished. We gonna shock and awe. That whole lightning blitzkrieg style of war. I wonder where it came from. It's not even at this point controversial. Everybody knows we've adapted from that strategy, and it's been part of the primary American technique and approach to war, at least since Desert Storm. So that's what the armies we train to do. The ones that we really train. I mean, because look at the Afghanistan army, right? All the billions of dollars they put in, but they never wanted them to do anything slightly martial, not in the least. We just didn't want the Taliban to win, which,
Can you do us a favor, actually? Because we were talking about this Kursk offensive, okay? That whole thing, right? It was supposed to, they wanted to go get one of these, power plant assets to maybe use in a negotiation.
Reactor. The Kursk incursion was about the Ukrainians breaking through Russian lines into traditional non-confrontational Russia, right? Like when I say non-confrontational, what I mean is this is not disputed territory, right? We're not talking about the Donbass or Luhansk or any of those areas.
Yeah, the traditional Russian borders, borders, the 92 borders. So like, okay. So now the Ukrainians went in there with all their new clothes for the first day of school. All right. Everything got dirty. Their shoes got scuffed. Now they have no manpower, and they're now losing this offensive. They're being counter-offensed, even though they're trying to have some sort of counter-offense. Now
there's literally surrendering by the dozens. Like and then you got, here's the thing, man. These guys, they're surrendering so much that there's been even fake surrenders, and it got a bunch of Ukrainians shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are real things that are happening, right? They ran out there. But war is about logistics, okay? How long can, in fighting terms, you would say cardio, right? Like, how long can you sustain this effort? The Russians had the ability to withstand those initial strikes, and now they're cutting off pockets of Ukrainians that don't have access to any other Ukrainian. Now, let me explain to you why that's dangerous, right? Just, again, from a straight up point of view. It's not a video game. The resources you got are the resources you got. The food you got, the water you got. You're not in Ukraine now, a place where you know. You're in Russia, a place where you probably don't know. You don't speak Russian, probably, and certainly not in an accent, which would give you away immediately. Every single bullet you fire is one less bullet you have, right? We're not in a video game simulation where like you just get to keep firing forever, right? So now another thing that happens is every time you fire, you give away your position. You know, it's FPV drones out there hunting you, right? So if you're cut off from the main Ukrainian force, you're no longer on offense, you're hiding. That's just a fact. That's what you're doing. Waiting for the rest of the Ukrainian lines to make contact, just resupply you, to cycle you out. You know what I'm saying? And that's not happening now. These guys are stuck. And like Russians are back to using fab glide bombs that are just, they're hiding in the forest and the Russians are just blowing the forest up.
So I just want to move. So, right. I think it's good. It's important to acknowledge that they're losing in this incursion that they made in, but not only that, they're still losing in the Donbass. They're still giving up ground all over the place.
It's way worse in the Donbass. It's worse because, like you said, they say up to 50% of the Ukrainian military reserve was sent for the Kursk operation. And they're now getting decimated. In the past month, the Russians have killed more than 11,000 Ukrainian soldiers, of an estimated 20,000 that went in. You know what I'm saying? So that's not good. But where they needed those soldiers, where they needed all that new equipment, where they needed all that ammunition, where they needed that air defense, was in the Donetsk. And the Donetsk is just being rolled up because what the Russians saw is they only have a finite amount of men. They only have a finite amount of tanks. If they've put them all here, we know that they're not in those places now. Chasiv Yar is about to fall. We've been talking about that for a while on this channel. They're taking hundreds of square kilometers on the Donbass. I mean, it's, they said they're not taking a meter. Is what, Sersky, I presume, who is the commander of chief of the Ukrainian forces, said the Russians aren't taking a meter. No, they're taking kilometers at a time, 10 miles a day in some places. Like,
yesterday, during the debate, I watched it, so y'all don't have to.
You better than me.
There was they talked about Russia and Ukraine, and obviously Kamala gave the very, neocon, we're here to support the Ukrainians and Russia, Putin bad. And, Donnie J, he kind of was like, y'all don't know what's going on over there. And there was like this moment with ABC was like, they needed to push back against what he said.
Don't do it, man. Don't say it, man.
Don't say it. And they basically asked him, like, so are you saying Ukraine can't win this war? And, his response, he danced around it and he didn't say anything, to one way or the other, but, it was inferred. But what is interesting to me is that ABC, which is one of the biggest networks out there, hosting this debate is like pushing Trump on his the reality of the special military operation. And that is that not only has Russia lost, which they lost last year, when they lost Bakhmut, they lost. And now what's happening is
when Ukraine lost. You said Russia. It's okay.
So that's when Ukraine lost. Sorry, yeah, when Russia took over Bakhmut, that's when Ukraine lost. And that's what experts say. I'm not an expert. I watch experts. So you now just have the degrading of the Ukraine military to the point where will there be a Ukraine in 2 years, in 5 years?
I think there will be. It's just going to be a rump state. I think they're probably going to lose access to the Black Sea. I think if this doesn't find a way to wrap up soon, that the Russians are going to roll up Kherson and just go ahead and roll up Odessa, which are still largely Russian-speaking territories anyway, right? These guys, I mean, the Russian mafia is called Little Odessa, right? That's how, again, y'all think we be tripping when we say how deeply tied the Russians and the Ukrainians are. This is like a civil war between those people, this ethnicity. Um,
Yeah,
and
borders changed 30 years ago. I mean, your
right,
grandmother lived in the Soviet Union.
right, right,
So, yeah, I mean, again, my grandmother remembered the Turks, in
right,
Palestine. So it's like
right,
the generations, not that many generations, only 25 generations.
right. Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So let's talk about this because this is also big news. Western intelligence agencies are receiving reports that Iran has delivered 200 ballistic missiles to Russia. We've been hearing a lot about this. What do you know, and can you provide us any context on this? It was a big topic of conversation with Blinken and Big Lloyd.
So the quip I would say is that sanctions work. And this, what has happened with the Ukrainians and the Russians is perhaps the most tragic comic version of sanctions ever, right? Sad Arthur. So America says, if you deal with the Iranians, we will sanction your banks. Then the Americans say, if you deal with the Russians, we will sanction your banks. So Russians have to do business with the world. Iran has to do business with the world. They're both sanctioned. So, of course, they're going to do more business with each other. This is a safer bet. Iran isn't that worried about, I mean, what's left to sanction, right? And so instead of making this transaction in US dollars, right, which would have probably happened 5 years ago, nah, it's a straight up cui bono. It's a what do you call it? A quid pro quo, right? So it looks like the Russians have traded their S-400 missile system, which is like one of the most advanced missile systems in the world. The Russians, they always go up by hundreds, right? They have the S-300, they have the S-400, they have the S-500. The S-500 is what you would compare to like the American THAAD, like the intercontinental ballistic, right? So the story is that the Iranians have obtained the Russian S-400 system and possibly the S-500, which again, they're under sanctions against receiving those type of technologies. However, how can you sanction Russia any more than you already have, right? And Russia's been provoked. Putin literally said a couple of months ago, if you continue to fund my enemies, I might have to fund your enemies. I mean, these are direct results of what happens when grown people tell you what their boundaries are and you push up against them. And here's the other elephant in the room, right? Oh, so what did Russia get from it? They got slightly longer range. It's what I would call an intermediate ballistic missile, right? Because Iran has a fucking lot of them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a key mark. It's a part of their military.
The metric fuck ton? Is that what you mean?
Right. So they traded Russia missiles, which are reportedly hypersonic, just like Russians. But whereas the Russian Iskander has like a 300-kilometer radius, these have like a 450-kilometer, right? Is the scuttlebutt. So they're able to fire from further back in a way that keeps the Russian Air Force a little bit safer. Or if you want to be more aggressive, you go up to the point of contact where you already are, and you can attack targets beyond your traditional range, right? So this has America incredibly pissed off, in spite of the fact that Ukraine is literally getting missiles from America, France, Germany, Britain. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's do as I say, not as I do. It's almost laughable that the United States is unpleased about this because, again, none of this affects American national security at all. It means your proxy might lose, but it doesn't really endanger America. None of these missiles have any range that could do anything close to landing on an American asset. Nowhere, maybe Alaska, if they put them at the ass end of the world in Russia and just fired across the damn strait, You know,
That's what Sarah Palin was worried about.
She knew it. She knew it all along, right?
It was Sarah all along. You know it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why, all of a sudden, is Iran pressed about getting all of this air defense? Well, who's been threatening to do a preemptive strike against them and all of their nuclear facilities for the past 20 years? It's Israel, who's violating their airspace and assassinating heads of state in Iran. It's Israel. And so, of course, Iran was like, this shit gotta stop. We gotta get our anti-air defenses online, on point. This should not be happening. It's not like they can go to Britain. It's not like they can go to Boeing and buy Patriots. Not that they would want to anyway. You know what I'm saying? So where do they go? They go to the world leader in anti-air defense, Russia. And again, this is a problem for America simply because they refuse to rein in Israel. Israel is literally making it harder for America to achieve its global strategic aims. Because
Israel is breaking the world. It's like someone said that not too long ago.
There it is. If you would just check your fucking friend.
Right.
None of this will even be happening.
Can't take them nowhere. Always turning up.
The money's good, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but I mean, because of this, it seems like the United States is using this to say it's time to strike in directly, these Russian cities. There was a conversation with Anthony Blinken and Big Lloyd. Seems to be a little bit of confusion about what was and what wasn't going to happen. General Austin kind of was like, yo, we don't want to use this. And Anthony Blinken was like, excuse me, we do want to use them.
That's another great moment, right? When we talk about the schizophrenic nature of the American government right now, because we don't have anyone ostensibly as the president other than essentially the Secretary of State is running the government. It's not Kamala. She's running for president. It's not Biden for reasons we know.
They're just trying to keep that man alive.
Right. So you have the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd. It's funny, right? How he's kind of become the Colin Powell of this administration, like the grown up who's like, yeah, this is not a bad idea. I mean, this is not a good idea. He was the first ones to really press Israel, this is how you get a strategic defeat by trying to do a genocide. It doesn't really work, Then he was gone for like a month or two. And now all of a sudden, everything is right back to where it was. Rafah carried on, right? He's the one that's been talking to Zelensky saying, I don't think you need long range missiles. I don't think it's going to help you achieve anything that you can't already achieve with your drones. He straight up said that. And then 2 days later, what happens? The black guy who is essentially trying to keep peace, who actually comes from a military background, who has a pretty good understanding of what Russia's capabilities really are, aside from what's politically expedient to admit, right? The guy who, I don't know, has probably made a lifetime studying what their capabilities are. He's told, you're wrong, right? And now we got Biden ostensibly, right, through Tony Blinken, going out and saying that, yeah, you could do it. We're going to give them to you. And I just want to remind you all, again, we cannot exaggerate how dangerous that is. Like Lavrov has said, long-range missiles coming into Russia is a red line. Putin has said, long-range missiles coming into Russia is a red line. American politicians always assume that they can de-escalate by escalating more, by being like, I'm the one. What you gonna do? What? But Russia could do something.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of old Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
When he was talking because they had the same issue when he was on Meet the Press, and they asked him a question about how the Department of Defense is like, this is probably not a great idea and we'd advise against it. And he's like, those DOD guys are full of crap.
Right. Yeah.
And it just goes like Anthony Blinken is the ideologue. He's the hawk. He's a member of the deep state. Some people say. And then you have, like you said, General Lloyd, who is a military man through and through, and the conflict is there. Seems like there's always a conflict between the State Department and the Department of Defense, and possibly the CIA or whatever it is. Everyone has their own little agendas, and it doesn't seem to be coalescing into an actual thing. Even though
that's not always bad, right? But normally you have a strong president. I don't mean a good president or any of those things, but I mean a person with a strong enough will to keep all of those strands together, right? Say what you want about Bush. What do you always famously say? I'm the decider. He let there be all of these opinions out there, but in the end, they did what he said. You know what I'm saying? So Colin Powell be like, invading Iraq is kind of dumb. I'm the decider. I decided we're going to do it. And it did it. You know what I'm saying? And we're in that same situation now, but who's the decider? Because we know it's not Biden, right? These are the kind of decisions that can lead to nuclear strikes. This is not hyperbolic speaking. This is literally what Putin has warned. This is what Lavrov, who is their foreign minister, who is essentially the Secretary of State. So you would take Lavrov as serious as you would take Tony Blinken. He's speaking for the government. It's not just like an opinion. He's not just getting free and saying shit.
Right.
Is the foreign...
It's not on his podcast.
Of Russia. And the thing that frightens me the most is he said, if we go there, America will not be spared. He straight up said, you're not going to be able to use Europe as your little cushion, as your little buffer. If we go there, we go there all the way. So then my question to you again is, what makes Ukraine worth that? Or we're talking about real...
It seems insanity. I don't know what else to say. It just seems like insanity. It seems like someone has a decision. They have the American way in which what they do is like, this is our plan. We want to destabilize Russia. We want to kill them without killing our, soldiers and troops. You're using Ukraine. You want to use, whatever, Poland or whoever else, Germany, who wants to jump in there. And it seems as if the game is up. Everyone knows what it is.
Bro, I don't know if you saw this. I think it was yesterday. Robert Fico, who is the president of Slovakia, the guy that got shot because he didn't want to give Ukraine any of his F-16s. And
he was shot by a pro-Ukrainian Ukrainian.
Yeah, that happened.
That's canon.
So he came out and gave a speech, and he's like, I just want to go on record saying it really bothers me the amount of Nazi paraphernalia the Ukrainian army uses. And I have a problem funding an army that continues to see itself in these lenses. Right? I mean, like, everyone wants to act, especially liberals like AOC and like the people that vote for her. And unfortunately, like some of the people that watch our broadcast, they think that we're hyperbolic when we say the Ukrainian army is a Nazi army. It's not. It's not hyperbolic. It's the truth. They call themselves Banderites. And if you don't know who Bandera was, you probably you don't know enough about this conflict to have an opinion.
Go check it out. Yeah, that's okay. You can go check it out. Do your own research. We like to say that.
Do some of the right things. You're watching us.
I think this is my last thing. I just think it's pretty incredible to go back to Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Iran, to see that basically they're exchanging missile defense and ballistic missiles on a barter system. That's how intense the like you said, the sanctions have been. And I think it's just an interesting thing to me because Iran is an ancient country, or at least an ancient place.
As are the Russians.
As are the Russians. Ancient. How did commerce happen in the ancient world? Through the barter system. And when you take things away, people will learn how to trade, even if it's a nation state.
Has left the chat. Angry emoji.
Yeah, ain't no middleman getting it for a small fee. And we know that that's what the United States does. They get the money, they send the money, and they make sure you got the money for a small fee. That's about all I got, man. Any thoughts? Anything we missed about this?
Like and follow us everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like and follow us everywhere. Inner City Left out there. I mean TMK. Emoji Lil Tanky. Boom.
Yeah, check it out. Check us out. I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. I want to give a shout out to our patrons. We got a Patreon. We got some free subscriptions. We got some paid subscriptions. Depends on where you at. Let's give a shout out to our paid members. Kelly, Dubsy22, Nicole, J. Goulart, 94, No Ground, RK, Paula, Lissa, Lauren, Suzette, and Dennis. Like Tanky said, you can always find us at Inner City Left for Emoji TMK. Emoji TMK. I love that. Yeah, we're Emoji TMK. And
that's our, what's that? Our go, what is it?
Go Tanks? Yeah.
That's our
Gogeta.
Hey,
yeah. I did the song with my Brody Ajax, and that's what we kind of did the thing. It's so ridiculous. Don't watch Dragon Ball Z. It's not a great show. But it is foundational, I guess. Anyway, for Amin TMK and for myself and Emoji Lil Tanky somewhere, Inner City Left. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.